call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his question and for joining me today at what was a very moving ceremony, and it was my great honour to be the patron, along with past Prime Ministers, of the Alana and Madeline Foundation. I want to acknowledge in the chamber, in the gallery today, Mr Mikac AM, the founding patron, a person who took such personal tragedy and turned it into a story which has made Australia a better nation. Thanks, Mr Speaker. I want to also acknowledge Walter's partner, Bridget, who joined us this morning, Sarah Davies, the CEO of the Foundation, and Greg Sutherland, the Chair of the Foundation, who are with us today. And I know that I spoke with John Howard this morning, and he unfortunately wasn't well enough to travel, but the Leader of the Opposition ably fulfilled his position this morning. The letters that we added to our National Museum today tell the story of such a devastating tragedy. The first letter that Walter Mikac wrote to the Prime Minister, John Howard, in ordinary blue biro. It's there for people to see on foolscap paper. It's one of the most extraordinary things that anyone can read in their life. And now people who visit the National Museum will be able to do it. The opening sentence alone stands, I think, as a monument to the grace and bravery of this truly great Australian that we've honoured just before. It said this: "Dear Mr Howard, as the person who lost his wife and two beautiful daughters at Port Arthur, I am writing to you to give you the strength to ensure no person in Australia ever has to suffer such a loss." Pretty remarkable that Mr Mikac wrote to Prime Minister Howard about giving him strength at that time. A bare 9 days after losing those three people who he loved more than anyone else in the world to this act of unspeakable violence at Port Arthur. Not only did he find the strength to think of others, he tried to make sure in reaching out that no one would suffer, as Mr Mikac had, sharing that strength, encouraging the Prime Minister to act. And I want to pay tribute to John Howard for the courage and the determination that he showed in that moment of national challenge. Importantly, he had bipartisan support from Kim Beazley and from the Labor team, which meant that it was possible to go forward. I want to, as I did this morning too, single out Tim Fischer. Tim's someone I had the enormous respect for. I travelled to his hometown for his funeral. And Tim, for the National Party leader at that time, where the angst and, quite frankly, fury and threats that went on, for him to stand up as the National Party leader, I think puts his place in history for other things as well, but for that, above anything else, I think his place in history is assured. And I know that that's felt across the chamber. The reforms that were passed have seen the death rate from firearms in this country halve since 1996, at a time when our population, of course, has just about doubled in that time, and at a time where we wake up too many mornings to news of school shootings and mass murder in the United States of America. The world looks at Australia and looks at those reforms and says that's where we should be. But it takes political leadership to get there, and John Howard showed it. The reforms, though, need to be continued. And just last Friday, the Attorney-General and the Police Ministers' Council unanimously agreed to present options for a new National Firearms Register to be considered by National Cabinet. This is action arising from the tragedy that we saw in the Leader of the National Party's electorate with the murder of 2 police officers and the neighbour who went to help. It is important we get this done, and Premiers and Chief Ministers are all committed to getting it done. And again, you can only do these hard things with bipartisan support. So that's important as well. It's important to recognise that arising out of this incredible tragedy, that Alana and Madeline, through the foundation, of course, didn't live long enough, tragically, to know that their dad is a hero not just to them but to all Australians. But he certainly is that. And today, I'm sure I speak on behalf of myself and the Leader of the Opposition to say that it was our great privilege to be present at a hero, while a hero spoke, and to give that example to other Australians. You've made a difference, sir, to this country. And we pay tribute to you today, and we honour you today.